everybody. I am so excited to have you here today on our very first podcast episode. I have been dreaming of this day for years. Ever since I started my business, I knew that I wanted to start a podcast. So I'm so excited to be in a position to deliver this to you today. It has been a long time coming. And I really wanted to start out just by sharing my story. I think that will give you a lot of insight into who I am, how I run my company, and really what my goals are with this platform to be able to share and help small businesses grow. So diving right into my story, I come from a very long line of small business owners and entrepreneurs in my family. I started my very first business when I was 16. I started an online clothing boutique. So I built a little e-commerce website and set up at craft fairs and trade shows selling women's clothes. And that really was my first experience marketing, building a business, running a company on my own to the degree that it was. And I actually did that all the way up until I started Succeeding Small. But that was throughout my college journey where I was getting my degree in English in something called rhetoric in particular, which is the study of arguments and persuasion, which actually has a huge impact in what I do today that I'm sure I will have plenty of episodes talking about because it's one of my many passions that I have. But when I came down to figuring out what I wanted to do, I was in college getting my degree in English and was trying to figure out ways that I could write for businesses. That was my objective. So I was actually sitting in a marketing class. It was a digital marketing course. And that class alone changed my life in many, many ways. First of which, I actually named my company in that class. So our course objective was to build a website and then create advertisements for it and be able to get some traffic to that platform. So I ended up creating a blog full of small business advice and called it Succeeding Small. So that's how that happened. And it was also in that class that a company came in, gave a guest lecture, and said that they were hiring interns. So I got an internship with this agency, and it was there that I learned search engine optimization, which is the process of getting websites and businesses to show up online on platforms like Google. When I learned what SEO was, it changed my life in so many ways. I completely fell in love with it. It was every combination of writing for businesses and so much more. It was this tool that I could use to grow businesses like my family's. Really life-changing. And so when I started my agency, I wanted to be able to come with the same quality digital marketing services, but make them accessible to the small business community. That was my mission when I started this. So I actually started Succeeding Small overnight. There was no premeditation. There was no formal business plan. I literally bought my trade name, built a one-page website. I made a logo on PowerPoint and printed out business cards on cardstock. And I went to a networking event the next day just to see what would happen, which is very impulsive and talks a lot about my headfirst type of personality. But that was what it took for me to start my company. So I ended up going to that networking event, and I ended up having so many people coming up to me afterwards and asking me what I did and how they could get more information. I ended up getting 5 clients out of that very first networking meeting. And that was very confirming to me that people needed my services, that there was a gap in the market for small business marketing, and that I could make a difference in people's lives. So I hit the ground running. That was almost 5 years ago. I was 20 years old when I started Succeeding Small. So it'll be 5 years this year. And it has been a wild journey ever since. So I started off as that solopreneur, and now we have a team of 8 creatives and managers on my team. I also built an internship program of my own because it was that program that I took in college that really changed my life, and I wanted to really pay back the favor. So we have an internship program at Succeeding Small where we have about 5 students every semester come, and I get to teach them digital marketing, which is wonderful. But I have gone through so many different stages of business, and where I am now is completely different than where I was 6 months ago, or 2 years ago, or 4 years ago when I very first started out. And a lot of that history is why I wanted to start this podcast in the first place. Because every stage of business was something new and uncharted territory, and I didn't know how to navigate it, and I still don't know. There's so much more to learn, but I really felt isolated in every single stage, just trying to make the wisest choices that I could, making mistakes and learning from them over and over again, but really just trying to build a company that I was proud of, that my community would be proud of, that my clients are proud of, and that my team is proud of. That was something that I still strive for every single day. But being able to create this podcast, to be able to share that journey and to talk with others and give expert tips throughout the business growing phase is something that I think is important to me and something I wish I had when I was in that particular stage. So I want to talk a little bit about the stages of business that I went through and where I am now today, where we are going in the future, just to give you a little insight into succeeding small itself. So first and foremost, that starting stage of business was nothing but fast tracked. I hit the ground running. I had no infrastructure in place. Like I said, starting overnight doesn't really allow you time to plan things out well. So as impulsive as it was, I still had a lot of growing to do. I really had to work backwards at some point and build the infrastructure that I had lacked. So when it comes down to starting businesses, I always tell people that you do not have to have a business plan if you don't want to. They are incredibly helpful and would really guide you, especially going forward with your intentions and your structure. If you are a structured person, for me, I had to do it. That's the only way that I could get started, was if I just dove head first. But some people need to have that plan really structured out for them to be able to do it the way that they are comfortable with and to help them be the most successful. However, given the way that I did that, I had to work backwards to build my foundation that I had missed. So it was about a year and a half in business when I actually I hired my first contractor, my 1099 contractor, and was teaching them digital marketing, having them help me out in a lot of the things that I was doing and teaching them, sharing what I knew and the way that I did business when it came down to SEO, to web design, to ads, to social media, just my philosophies I was able to impart on somebody else. And that really helped me structure out my services, get a really fine-tuned idea of what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, how I measured results, and it was the first opportunity for me to create a system. It was still very informal. It was still very verbal, which in my stage of growing, I had to think differently about that. I had to actually create systems and processes, create things like SOPs and instruction guides to be able to have that be replicable. Because at first it was all auditory, which was helpful for me to get it down, but I ended up having to recreate a lot of that same stuff later. So my advice to you is start those systems early. If you do things on a daily basis, write them down, document that process, pretend like you're teaching somebody else, because those little tips will help you so much in the future when you're going through that stage of business that's different. Having that first person really gave me the structure that I needed, and it also gave me a little insight into where I wanted my company to go, because before then it was just me running my business, carrying out every single service. I was very particular and still am particular about never selling something that I can't do myself. So I was the one behind the computer screen, designing the sites, writing the copy, doing the SEO, getting the backlinks, signing up for directory listings, everything in between. That was my role, where I was comfortable and I loved it. I love what I do. And I thought I could do that forever, and I probably could have, but I would have had to limit myself very, very much in terms of just how many clients I could accept at one time. So it came down to a point probably about 2 or 3 years ago, where I had to ask myself, do I want to stay here where I am? I had about 2 people with me, working with me at that time. And I had enough clients where I was comfortable, and I could have decided to stay right there and turn people down, just maintain my client basis and be comfortable. Or I could decide to seriously grow and take the steps necessary to scale my business. And that was a hard choice to make, because the latter option was terrifying, right? There was so much unpredictability. It means I would have had to bring on more people on my team. It meant that I would have to have a lot more infrastructure than I did, because I had very little. So it came with a lot of unknowns, but it was something that I simply had to do, because if I didn't grow, then I would be denying myself and my purpose in starting my business in the first place. I started to help small businesses and to serve my community. And if I stopped, then that meant I wouldn't be able to serve who I wanted to serve. It would be a disservice to myself and to my clients having to actually say no. So I decided to do it. I decided to scale and grow and really take my business to the next level. That stage in particular was also very interesting, because I do everything at breakneck speed, and there's very little infrastructure in place, which I am working very hard on. And that actually was the stage of business that I really had to retrain my thought process in terms of going from this very visionary entrepreneur to somebody who's on the ground, coming up with systems and processes, making sure that I had a plan in place for every little thing that I was doing, which was very unnatural to me. And it still is. I still have to remind myself to be that person, because that's what it takes to grow. It took 2 things to really scale my business: systems and people. I could not have done it just on my own. So being able to have more people on my side, being able to have a management team and have a creative team, really allowed me to take a different direction in my business. It allowed me to become a different person, step more into that CEO role, where I'm not necessarily in the weeds, so to speak, not necessarily doing the day-to-day activities, but rather being the visionary, taking the lead, setting the vision of the company, teaching, leading, and guiding my people to where I want to go. That's where I am today, and is something that I'm still actively defining for myself, is what does being a CEO mean to me, and what do I want to be doing with my time, versus at the start of my business, where I was the one doing everything. I was the one doing the work. I was the one coming up with the processes of how I laid out everything. I was the one selling. I was the one doing all of the back end business running, like the bookkeeping and the HR and the management, all of the different hats that us small business owners wear. So about 4 months ago, I had my baby girl. We found out that we were pregnant at the beginning of last year, which was so exciting for me and my family, but also very traumatic. Figuring out what I was going to do with my business, because that stage of business meant that I had to figure out how to structure my business so that it could run without me, that I could afford to have a baby and I could afford to take a vacation or get sick or anything like that, where I would have to step away. And I needed to make sure that my business could still stay afloat without me. And I know for most entrepreneurs, their business is their lifeline. Like, that is their baby. They can't imagine having anybody else having control over it. We do it, and we do it best. But so being able to let go is terrifying, and trying to delegate and, pass those things off is really scary and challenging. But it really forced me to go into hyperdrive and really make sure that I had the foundation in place that could allow me that kind of lifestyle. Because as much as I love working, and I do, it's such a huge part of my identity, as is my company, that I don't ever want to be disassociated from it, but I do need to be away, and I need to make sure that my company can survive. So all of last year was dedicated to putting those systems in place. So making sure that I had a really solid management team, which I am so excited to introduce you to them, because they are fantastic and they complement me in so many ways. And I'm excited to have episodes talking about them, talking to them, and really talking about how it was those roles that really helped me scale in many, many ways, as well as my creatives. So being able to have this amazing team behind me and putting in those systems to be the most successful that we could be was a huge part of what 2021 looked like. Making sure that we had systems in place for onboarding new clients, for being able to carry out our services as according to the integrity standards that I've said about the way that we do things, improving our systems, improving our services, making sure that all of our clients had active communication. So exploring things like automated newsletters and emails that went out, sharing things about onboarding or about reporting or touch bases, making sure that we still had a marketing plan in place. That way the company could still be out in the community, even though I was not. So that was a lot of work, and we got close to doing everything that I wanted, but my sweet baby girl came 6 weeks early, much to my surprise, and I had to cut a lot of things short to be able to be present for her and make sure that I could come back and be fully present in my business and be fully present in my family. So for this year, for 2022, this is, we are recording this in February, so it is the start of the year, and I've got so many goals that I want to get through this year. I believe I'm calling this stage of business, whether it's accurate or not, I feel like this is more the sustainability stage of business. One of my goals for this year is to build out different revenue streams, making sure that we are sustainable in our revenue. So being a service-based business, we have a beautiful problem of getting more clients. And that means we have to do more work. And in order to do more work, we have to hire more people. And it just becomes this cycle, which is really great and means that you're growing, but it leaves very little room for profitability. So that's the area that I'm really focusing on, is making sure that we have other avenues of generating that income and still expanding our reach, making sure that we can serve more people, because that is the impact that I'm looking to create with Succeeding Small, is to be able to serve small businesses, to really help them take their business to that next level, get that visibility that they deserve. So things like this podcast, things like products, things like courses, our blog has a ton of free resources that we are just generating tons of free content to help and serve the small business community. So that's something that we are really heavily focusing on. Another goal that I have for this year is a internal goal to build a culture at Succeeding Small, to really define what it means to work here and have a career here, to be able to take care of people and create and provide jobs that are fulfilling and that can help people create the dream lives that they have for themselves as well. So exploring and streamlining things like hiring and onboarding and offboarding and what benefits look like, and 1099 versus W-2 structure, all of these different topics to really hone in and define what it means to be a Succeeding Small team member. That's something that we're going to focus on this year a lot. And then the third thing is really just refining the Succeeding Small brand and really getting it out there. Last year, actually, we rebranded. We got a brand new logo. We built a website, which was so amazing to get out, because we had been using the same website that I had just casually built, and never treated Succeeding Small like I treat my clients, which I think is a very common problem that a lot of small business owners face is we always take care of our clients first and put them first before we work on our own stuff. So last year we were actually able to focus on the business itself, Succeeding Small, and market like we would market our clients, getting that brand presence out further. So that means really diving deep into our own SEO, into our social media, into things like PR and distributing content and our presence, and really just getting in front of more people that we can serve with our education and our passion to help people grow. So that's where we are today. It's been a long time getting here, but I am so excited to continue to share these milestones with you as we go through this podcast. Other things we'll be talking about are very specific insights into all of these different things. So talking about marketing tips and strategies, talking about what it means to scale your business, talking about how to hire somebody and what that process is like, talking about what is an SOP and how to create one, how to generate more profit, how to make more revenue. So I'll be sharing my stories and insights as I've learned and gone through this, but also I'm excited to interview topic experts about these spaces as well. So we can hear insider perspectives from people who have studied this, who live this out on a daily basis and have experienced the same things that you likely are going through now. So this is just the beginning of the Succeeding Small podcast, but I am so excited to dive in and get this started because this is my passion. My passion is to teach and lead and empower other small businesses and people and students. So this is another opportunity that I get to do just that. So thank you for allowing me to do what I love. And I'm so excited to have you follow along with me at the Succeeding Small podcast.